Hello, welcome to British English with me, Ali. In today's lesson, I want to talk to you about tea. As you may know, British people absolutely love a cup of tea, whether it's the more formal afternoon tea or simply a tea break. In this lesson, I'm going to be sharing as much information as I can about the tea culture in Britain and answering some questions about tea style in the UK. Let's get started. There's nothing that British like better than a good cup of tea. Tea is basically the answer to many of life's worries. Putting on the kettle is deeply associated with relaxing, with taking a break, and even spending time with your nearest and dearest, that is, your friends or your family. Having a tea is basically a way of scheduling time, either for yourself or, as I said, with your friends and family. It's a tradition to enjoy tea at around 11 o'clock, but more traditionally would be 3:30, that would be afternoon tea time. You may know of afternoon tea as something very grand, a large array of cakes and sandwiches put on a tiered plate, as it is now, and tea drunk all afternoon. I'm afraid to say that most households don't host this kind of event. This is more of a special thing, even for British people. I will give my own personal experience and tell you that I went to a very beautiful afternoon tea with a dear friend of mine, and we went to a hotel called Hotel Park Royal, and that was in Piccadilly in London. And they served the most decadent afternoon tea. There was even champagne, which I wouldn't say is traditional, but there were plenty of cakes and sweet treats as well as savoury bites as well. I would say though, more regularly would just simply be having a cup of tea that would be an English breakfast or Darjeeling or some kind of black tea served with either milk or sugar. That is the more traditional combination, but in recent years, green tea has become very trendy and fashionable, as has an array of herbal teas. Traditionally, I think black tea was a more preferred choice, whereas nowadays you can get all sorts of teas, and even as a British tea drinker myself, I wouldn't be able to tell you all the different types of teas, nor would I necessarily be able to tell the difference between a subtle change in one type of tea. Something that my mother actually does, a typical way that British used to eat, is to enjoy the main meal of the day, the dinner, at lunchtime. So this would mean that the evening meal was very, very light, and afternoon tea was more a top-up from the lunchtime dinner rather than a snack. Nowadays, because we work, we don't really have time for this big dinner at lunchtime. So the sandwich has become very popular. There are, salads to go and quick bites in this way. And when we come home from work, just like in Japan and many other countries, we enjoy our larger dinner at dinner time. As such, having a huge afternoon tea is a rarity, it's a treat. But when we have tea in more daily life, we will tend to have a cup of tea and perhaps something smaller to eat, such as a Victoria sponge cake. Victoria sponge is a quintessentially British cake, which consists of two usually round-shaped sponge cakes, and in the middle there's some jam, often strawberry jam, and cream. And this is always enjoyed with tea, a very, very good combination with tea. Other types of sweet treats that we might enjoy accompanying our tea could be scones with clotted cream and strawberry jam usually. Similarly, shortbread is quite a popular choice because the buttery sweetness of this biscuit matches very, very nicely with a nice cup of tea. Going back to the idea of the more decadent afternoon tea, we would typically find here sandwiches which are finely sliced, so very small sandwiches, nothing like these huge monster sandwiches, very finely sliced bread with the crusts cut off, and inside typical fillings are cucumber or egg and cress sandwiches. Those are two very typical things to find in your afternoon tea selection. Please do leave a comment below and tell me what is your favourite item to pair with a cup of tea. It could be a traditional British English food, or it could be something from your own country. Please do comment. I mentioned earlier about drinking tea at 11 o'clock. And for people working in offices, this is a great time to escape your desk for a short while. You might go with your colleague into the cafeteria or kitchen in your workplace and make a cup of tea. And as you're making the tea, you can chat together, you can catch up on each other's news, and basically just have a 5-minute breather from your work. Each British person has their own preferences as to how much tea they drink, but I do know of some people who basically continually drink tea throughout the day. So they could even have up to 10, if not more, cups of tea a day. For me, when I lived in the UK, I would enjoy a cup of tea at breakfast time, then again around 11 o'clock, possibly after lunch, and again at afternoon tea time. We don't tend to drink tea after around 4 or whenever afternoon tea finishes because of the caffeine content. If I wanted something warm and comforting after this time, I would opt for a herbal tea. When I came to Japan, I was extremely surprised to find the royal milk tea. I chose it one time and I was shocked at how sweet it was. In the UK, I think the majority of the cup of tea is basically the tea itself, and only a small portion of milk is added, and sugar if that's the way that you like your tea. Just as it varies from person to person as to how much tea they drink, also the way that the person drinks their tea differs a lot. I personally like my tea quite strong with milk and sometimes sugar, but certain family members of mine like it extremely strong, lots of milk and lots of sugar. And I would say that this is a very comforting type of drink. It has the sweetness, the milkiness, but also that nice flavour of tea. And we actually refer to this as a builder's tea. However, some people don't like any milk at all, only sugar, or perhaps even just a slice of lemon. So everybody differs, and this is a nice thing to discover and learn about another person, is how do you take your tea? Take is a pretty useful word to use when having a tea party or talking about tea. Do you take milk? Do you take sugar? How do you take your tea? A small heads up, a little hint, is that milk is usually added first to the cup and then the tea is poured in. This is a traditional way to serve tea because the delicate china cup could potentially break with the heat of the tea if poured in directly. So the milk is a sort of buffer to prevent any explosions of teacups at the table. I was told that in some Eastern countries, if somebody were to offer you a cup of tea, it might be an indication that they want you to leave. However, in the UK, if somebody offers you a cup of tea, it's certainly an invitation to stay. or at least an indication of their hospitality. I don't have an example here, but we have something called a tea cozy. This will go over the teapot and keep it nice and warm. As you probably know, Britain can get a little bit cold, and we rely on our nice warm tea to keep us nice and cozy and toasty in the colder weather. So we'll use some kind of cover for our teapot to keep it nice and warm. I'm going to finish there today. Thank you so much for listening. Please do leave a comment in the comment section below, and until next time, bye bye.